What's up, guys? Tristan and Tony here with the Zero Duck 30 podcast, and today we're going to be talking about duck hunting in the marsh. One of the things that really helps us out in the marsh is the HuntWise app. So, Tony, why don't you tell us a little bit about the HuntWise app?
So we got an exclusive deal right now. Any of our followers, if you go to HuntWise and download the app and enter in code DUCK30, it'll save you 20% off of Pro and Elite versions. So even if you were just like me when you first started and you're a cheapskate, go download it for free. You guys are missing out. 20% discount, so check them out.
Heck yeah. So, if you guys have been following us from the beginning, you know that we're marsh duck hunters. We come from North Florida, not originally, but when our duck hunting life started was North Florida, and we hunt a lot of, all over Florida and a lot of Georgia, and it's a completely different type of hunting than, your Arkansas flooded timber or even most of the Mississippi flyway or even, the other flyways. So we just thought we would take a podcast to really just kind of dive into what it's like if you're going to go out and hunt in the marsh and, the Atlantic flyway.
Yeah.
Well, and also I guess you could consider Texas too, because they got some pretty marshy stuff over there too. But anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know what? Honestly, I feel like this might be one of those topics that spills into 2 episodes. So we'll see where we go with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll start off with saying that if you travel across the United States and you hunt waterfowl, you're going to run into a lot of different experts of regions,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. I didn't realize this when I first got into duck hunting. I thought, what I do is duck hunting everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not,
No.
I can't imagine if you go out to California. I've never been there.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Canada or Alaska or whatever, it's going to be different. And you're going to find people that understand the waterfowl hunting process in that area, and they're great at it, and we came up in the marshes.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we had our stomping grounds, and that's what we know the most about. And so we thought it'd be a great time to talk about what can we do to help try to make you guys' life easier out in the marsh.
Yeah. Now, what would you say would be some of the hardest things you'll have to come across if you, day one, I'm going to go hunt Florida or Georgia, you're going out in the marsh. What are some of the challenges you're going to face?
Well, there's 2 parts to that, and there's teal season, early teal. In Florida, they actually have an early teal, early wood duck season. So if you wood duck chasers, you want to get a wood duck, get down to Florida in September. But there's really, it's 2 different animals. So when you're hunting early teal, you're going to be enduring some pretty harsh environments. When you're out there scouting, when you're out there hunting, you're going to be mostly in marshes. It could be brackish water, which is a mixture of salt and fresh water. There's areas where mosquitoes love to be. We've all seen the picture of the mosquito in Florida that looks like an alligator face,
Yeah.
So, but it's very tough. It's hot. It's very hot. It's very humid. And I would recommend that if you're not in good physical shape, then don't even waste your time coming to Florida to a teal hunt. It's not worth it because you just have a bad experience.
Sure.
We've got a good friend of ours, Hunter. He's got more willpower than any man I've ever seen of a size of him. And he makes it, but we'll have him on to talk about it because it's a severe challenge for a person that big, because it's simply about gravity.
Mm-hmm.
The mud. Why do you think so many country guys talk about Georgia mud and Florida mud?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's crazy. You can get to spots where, there was a spot that Tristan went in one time that I thought I was going to jump in and save him.
Yeah. I mean, you went, or I went hip deep without, and I mean, just like that,
Instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly. And, it's pretty scary out there. You're also dealing with alligators, and whether you like it or not, they're there.
Oh, yeah.
Anywhere from, we've had some that are 18 inches pop up at our feet,
Mm-hmm.
to where we've had 8-10 foot alligators go out and chomp our ducks out after we shoot them, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, but yeah, we're just kind of diving into marsh hunting. It's a different animal than timber,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll tell you, I went to timber hunting dumb, and I've learned a lot. And I totally believe that whether you like it or not, timber hunters, I'm going to cut on you a little bit. That if we brought you down to our marsh, you cry like a baby. It's a different animal. But point is that we want to help other hunters, no matter where you're from. If you want to come down to Florida, we'll hunt with you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to come down to South Georgia, we'll hunt with you. But we want you to understand what it really takes to go and do that, because Florida and South Georgia, South Carolina, even these states, it's its own unique flyway, and there's a lot of great hunting opportunities.
Yeah. Um, talking about great hunting opportunities, Florida has some of the most unique hunting opportunities that there is out there. A lot of people come to Florida to shoot their mottled duck. A lot of people come to shoot their black belly whistler, which you can shoot those in a couple other states. I think.
Fulvius Whistler.
Yeah, and the fulvius as well. But I think the black belly you can shoot in Texas and um, maybe a couple others, Louisiana maybe. But the fulvius for sure, you can only shoot that in like South Florida and like in the Mexicos and stuff.
Yeah.
So those are three really unique birds. And the other thing is, people come to Florida to shoot their fully plumed blue wing a lot of times because Florida will, have blue wings all season long, and that's one of the coolest things about it. It's really like teal season all year, and but that's where there's four unique birds basically right there that is a unique opportunity for a lot of guys.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's so weird. I mean, imagine going to hunt somewhere where you'll never see a mallard.
Mm-hmm.
If you're from the Midwest, you can't imagine that.
No.
There's no mallards.
No.
And I would almost bet my life that the mallards that are shot on public or anywhere in Florida, there's some part of what we call park duck down here.
Oh, guaranteed. Georgia DNR, I was reading an article about, and that's a state above Florida. Georgia DNR put out an article, and you guys can look it up on the DNR website. They say there's no migratory mallards to Georgia. People will claim otherwise, but the DNR said there's no migratory mallards that come to Georgia. So.
Yep. And if you look, I just actually posted, if you look up on my Instagram, HT underscore duck hunter underscore, I got underscores in it. But if you look up, I just posted something on the Atlantic flyway migration of mallards.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see any of those lines coming from really any more south than maybe Virginia.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So
South Carolina, maybe, I would think.
Yeah, and DU's actually got a really good podcast on what's going on with the Atlantic flyway mallards, and some of the ways they're changing on gauging species and limits.
Yeah.
But anyway, now to get off topic.
Yeah.
So Tristan, let me ask you this. I had hunted in the marshes for a couple of years before I got you in the sport. I remember the first time I took you. You probably hated it because we didn't see many ducks. We did see a big pile of teal fly over our head, but the mosquitoes, it was terrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, before that, my only duck hunting experience would be not duck hunting experience. My only hunting experience would be Illinois fall deer hunting and winter deer hunting. There's not mosquitoes. It's cold, completely different. You're with a bow, completely different environment. But yeah, that was one of those days it's early teal season. It's hot as hell. Hunter was with us that day. And it was just muggy and bugs, but, I mean, the highlight of the day was shooting my first duck ever, which, teal obviously is blue wing. And, it's just, that was a good intro to duck hunting because it did not come easy. That's for sure. So, and thankfully versus your first duck hunting experience where it was like a limit of green wings in Florida, which is like, what?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so what are some of the things that a hunter needs to do to prepare to come hunt Florida? One thing, I know I'm asking that question and I want you to answer it, but one thing I want to say before that is, number one, I do not recommend you coming to Florida on a private hunt. Private hunters, don't get mad at me here. Let me tell you where I'm going with this. There's very few outfitters in the state of Florida to come hunt. The reason is, and I truly believe this, the state of Florida does an amazing job with their public land. I really feel like there's a lot of states that should adapt to some of these things. We'll get into it. We'll dig deeper into it, but we have some strong beliefs about what Florida does if Arkansas picked that up.
Yes.
We believe that the overall population of public hunters would be so more satisfied. I don't think I've ran into a Florida duck hunter that is dissatisfied with the way that the state of Florida does it. It does help that Mr. Putnam is the CEO of DU, and he used to be the governor of Florida. That helps, but it's just a different animal.
Yeah, no, for sure. The first thing I would recommend, and I'm serious, breathable waders.
Yes. Oh God.
If you
yes.
think you're gonna wear neoprene out there and it's 85 degrees, nah, it
No.
ain't happening, buddy.
No, we did it,
No,
and we want to save your life.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely that. And you Midwest hunters, because we've talked to you, you're gonna think we're crazy, but you better put some coots out in that decoy spread. And if you don't, you're probably not gonna have the success as other guys.
You're
because
not.
You ask you go on Florida duck hunting on Facebook right now. What's their number one decoy to put out in my spread? Everybody would say a coot.
Yeah.
Bet my life.
There's guys out there that would say you don't need any decoys but coots. For sure, especially the old timers.
Absolutely. I mean, they're a huge confident decoy to just all the ducks down here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look at Mojo. They came out with the coot rippler. Is that the name of it? And do you think a company like that would invest all that money in something that didn't work?
Exactly.
They're very successful. They know what's going on. But the coot, yeah. And when we talk to guys up in Arkansas, we're like, hey, bro, you want us to bring up any coots? They're like, what the hell are you talking about? Bringing any coots? Yeah, it's just the difference of what works in different areas. Again, what I talked about earlier about professionals in different areas. What one thing works in the marsh is have some coots.
Yeah,
definitely,
for sure. It's its whole different animal. So we got breathable waders and the coots. You know, one thing that we've always ran into is, you know, sometimes you're in situations where you can't hunt out of the boat, which is, you know, similar to, I guess, other areas. But in those situations, you might be hunting out of a reservoir where it's 4 foot deep, right? And you are sitting there and your gun's in the water, your bag's in the water, and it's a major struggle. That's a whole, we haven't really figured out a good solution to solving that problem. It's just something you kind of have to deal with. Every once in a while you look out and find some good like marsh grass that'll support your backpack. But you know, waterproof backpacks, and we've put them through the test, I'll tell you that, are very important. You know?
Absolutely. You know, the other thing, if you're coming to hunt Florida, especially on public land, any public areas in the state of Florida, you need to look up each individual one to see what their motor restrictions are.
Yes.
You can run any kind of motor, but it's the amount of horsepower. There's a lot that you'd be surprised that you can't have more than a 10 horsepower.
Georgia too.
Yeah, Georgia too. Yeah, you're right. So make sure that you guys look that up, because, I mean, if we saved one person from making a trip to Florida with a 40 horse gator tail and they showed up to hunt Florida, they're going to be very limited where they can go.
And that's another great point too, is you can't really run an outboard and expect a duck hunt down here. You know, if you're running just the river just to have fun, yeah, you can run an outboard, but in these marshes, you can't run an outboard like you can. People get away with it in the timber, you know?
Absolutely. No. And honestly, I think there's two, if you've got a duck boat, you know, I started off, my very first boat was a Crestliner. It was a 16 foot by 48. Bought it off a guy for $1,500. It had a 10 foot long tail with a Predator motor. And I know you guys right now are going, predator mode or blah, blah, blah. But you know what? It's what a guy can afford, and that was what I could afford. And that's what we went out and ran the marshes with. And when you got a 10-foot gator, not 10-foot gator tail, but a 10-foot longtail, you can pretty much go wherever the heck you want.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you got enough speed going in, but we took that thing everywhere. We call it what do we call it?
The Swamp Harley.
The Swamp Harley.
I think we were talking to a guy at a boat ramp, and he's like, man, I used to call them the Swamp Harleys because it was so damn loud.
Yeah, it was because it had straight pipes.
Yeah.
That came all the way. Yeah. And we would drive by a restaurant on the water and be like, yeah, we're duck hunters, but anyway, point is, right setup for a boat, I would say have a long tail of some kind.
Surface drive.
Or surface drive. It is necessary. You can go on my TikTok or my Instagram, and I'm not trying to promote myself here, but I just did one the other day, and it looks like we are on land. And I'm running a gator tail, 40XD with a War Eagle 750 Gladiator on it. It's probably not the best Florida setup, honestly. It's more of a timber setup, but I wanted a tank, and that's what I bought. But point is, motor-wise, surface drive, or you want to have a long tail because you definitely got to get into muddy swamp areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. If you show up in just a regular outboard, you're not gonna be able to compete with the main public land hunter. What else, Tristan? What else that we do different down in the marsh than what people do out in the Midwest?
Well, one thing that's kind of interesting is a lot of your duck base is going to be teal and ringnecks, and people, will claim all day that teal a lot of times don't really care about the wind. People say that about ringnecks too, but when you're hunting in Florida, and I guess South Georgia can be that way too, but a lot of times there's not hardly any wind, and we've hunted in environments where it might be 4 foot deep, but it's full of hydrilla, and then those decoys won't move in that hydrilla. So it's really important to have spinners and like a jerk rig, because you're not going to get hardly any natural movement from the wind. You might look out a day in the Midwest where you're like, oh, sweet, I don't have to put any kind of motion out because my decoys are working great. And I would say 95% of the times we've hunted, we got to do something to kind of get some motion going.
Yep. No, I agree. You definitely have, I would say 90% of the time.
Yeah.
We don't have the wind. And, we go up to Arkansas, and whether it's timber, public land, private land, in the fields, whatever it might be, every time I talk to somebody, they're like, well, the wind today is this, and I understand it is very important up there because there's more constant wind. But yeah, we have days down in the marsh, most days where they're just, it's less than 5, 6, 7 miles an hour,
And that's one thing I was also going to touch on with that is, the common duck hunting thing is, you're playing the wind, and down there you still want to try because you never know, because of some of the random puddle ducks you might get, but it's just not as prevalent as it is in other states.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely not, and I have friends of mine that are extremely successful duck hunters that would tell you, no, I don't play the wind at all, and I really don't blame them. The other thing that is really cool, and you see it in some of our Florida videos, is the sun is so bright in Florida. I hunted sometimes the last couple of years, and just the way our setup was in the Midwest, we might have some face in the sun. It's just, I know that's not ideal, but it's what we wanted to do in that situation. But in Florida, if you do that, your eyeballs are going to be burned out. I mean, it's definitely a thing. What else? So there's a lot of different opportunities to hunt public land. I mean, I know we touched on that a little bit earlier, and I want to kind of circle back to that. Yeah. Tristan, why don't you talk about the different types of opportunities there are for somebody to come to Florida, not only for resident Florida's hunters, but non-resident hunters.
Yeah, and same thing with Georgia as well. Florida overall you would say is a better waterfowl state than Georgia, but one thing that they do well is through their quota system, their lottery system, whatever you want to call it. You apply for these hunts, and then these areas that you're hunting are very well managed, and you most times are going to have at least some opportunities to kill a few ducks.
What's like the main areas that we do that at? What would you say would be the low average per hunter?
I mean, the worst day we've hunted at this certain quota, place in Florida, that I can remember is I think we shot 10 with 4 guys.
Yeah.
So I mean,
but the average, if you look at what their averages are,
over 3 ducks a hunter.
Yeah,
most of the time
for sure.
And it's not just that one place. There's several different places in Florida that average those kind of statistics, and it's just really the way they manage them. And it's just nice to have that option. And honestly, if you apply all season, I wouldn't say you're guaranteed, but I would say you got probably a 80% chance of having at least one hunt on one of those areas. And honestly, one of those hunts might just make your whole duck season. I mean, seriously.
You're right.
So, if you kind of grind it out outside of that, you'd still have a pretty good duck season.
Here's the other thing that's really cool about those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, and this is just what I'm limited to in my knowledge, but I know Tennessee has a point system. Georgia has a point system. I don't agree with it because there's some public land, and I'm gonna hack on Georgia a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's some public land opportunities that if you don't have, could be 10 years
yes.
of points saved, you could never hunt an opening day there in your life.
Yep.
That's not right. There needs to be some reform there. But here's the cool thing about those places. Everybody, it's fair game.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a non-resident hunter or a resident hunter, because now that we live in Georgia, we're non-resident, and there's no government controlling thing there.
Mm-hmm.
We had about the same odds
mm-hmm.
as a non-resident
or as a resident.
A resident.
Yeah.
You know, something that's important with those quota hunts is get 2 or 3, 4 people.
Yeah.
Because some of them you can take 3 people, some of them you can take 4 people, but do it as a group.
Mm-hmm.
So you give yourself better odds.
Yeah, and that's something that we all, say, hey, this is what we're applying for this day, whatever, and then a lot of times it'll work out that somebody gets it. So.
Yep. So the flip side of that is you get a lot of masses that do that.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of uneasy areas in Florida. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about some of those areas that I know people that are extremely successful, but I have no idea where they hunt on public land, but they do. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Hey guys, welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about other areas that you can go hunt that are not WMAs or public land areas. They are public land areas, but they're not WMAs. So I just thought it would be kind of cool to talk about, if you are a true explorer, how you can get out and hunt areas that give you an advantage as a public land hunter, because we know a lot of guys, and honestly, I know guys that are way better than we are. They come up to us and said, oh yeah, we got a limit of widgeon.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
Yeah.
Where in Florida did you get a limit of widgeon that looked that pretty?
Yeah.
We got limits of pintails.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
Right.
You wouldn't believe, if you're a Midwest hunter, you're used to pintails hitting those rice fields and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We got pintails that go down here in the mangroves.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy. So anyway, Tristan, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's got a lot of coastal marsh that they call intracoastal waterways, and ducks, it's brackish water or salt water, but for some reason they still like it. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a lot of opportunities to kill puddle ducks in those environments, as well as divers and your mergansers and all that stuff. I've even heard of people shooting pintails straight up like hunting like riding off a beach basically.
Or you think you'd shoot a redhead?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
hunting redheads, you shoot a pintail.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting state for that reason. And like you were saying, there's a lot of there's Lake Okeechobee, which I don't have a problem saying because it's huge.
Mm.
The St. Johns River. There's a lot of massive area that is in a WMA that if you find ducks on and you're so many feet off a dock or from a housing, you can hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, we've wood duck hunted on the St. Johns River. I think actually wasn't it your first wood duck you shot on the St. Johns
Mm-hmm.
River?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, I forget what it is, several hundred feet away from any dwellings or anything. But yeah, I mean, you could see them, and we just were at this mouth of this creek, and wood ducks came flying through, and boom.
Yeah. I mean, Tristan mentioned that shortly. Is you need to understand what the law is as far as being away from public dwellings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of the rule is if you can put your foot in the water, and it's a public waterway, you can duck hunt on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember duck hunting on this creek.
Mm-hmm.
That was a public waterway,
mm-hmm.
and families were coming by me on their what we call yuppie boats and waving to me, and I'm sitting there with my canoe,
Mm-hmm.
all tucked up against the bank,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for wood ducks to fly through, so, but it was perfectly legal.
Yeah.
So,
and that's something, Florida is also a huge fishing destination. So, as a lot of people know, and, there's been some interesting experiences.
I knew this is where this was going to go.
Yeah. So, there's been some interesting experiences with, personally, with Austin. We were hunting St. Johns River. And you guys have probably seen Austin Pulaski in some of our videos and stuff. But, we decided to go out and hunt wood ducks this one morning. And this is a big public land in Florida topic because so many areas that are good duck hunting are also good fishing.
Yes.
So, a lot of places the rules are you kind of just got to work it out and share it. There's not like, oh, duck hunters get it this day and, fishers get it this day. So we're hunting on this river and it's like, 7:30 in the morning and here comes this guy fishing on his kayak. And we're like blowing our duck calls like as he's like 200-300 yards away fishing. Like, don't come through here while we're duck hunting because, I mean, just making it obvious for him. And I remember this guy got right in front of us like 50 yards and he like was fishing and he looked up at us and took a drink of his coffee and just kept fishing. And I was just like, this son of a gun. Like, and
you want to go over and dump his kayak?
No, and he wasn't in the wrong and we weren't in the wrong.
No,
so it's like, what are you going to do?
No, but that's something you guys don't have to deal with in the Midwest really that often is. And we run into it a lot, and I know a lot of fishermen, they're duck hunters and vice versa, whatever. But, yeah, it's one of those things that if you're a duck hunter and you see a fisherman come up, you're like,
yeah,
you stick your chest out, you're like, I'm a duck hunter.
Blow some duck calls.
Yeah, blow some duck calls and that kind of thing. But we all got to work together on the public land.
Mm-hmm.
Last episode, I said something about people have this false perception of public land. You can pee on it and it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
That goes for all of us in every sport that we do, no matter what we do.
Yeah.
If somebody's squirrel hunting during deer season or whatever it is, we got to be respectful of that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, did you have something else?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to follow up with on the fishing thing to give these fishing guys a little credit is one thing people do swear by is like if you're fishing like a lake or something during a bass tournament, people say, and it makes sense, like they keep the ducks stirred up. So that's what I'll give you guys that one.
But talk about the buffleheads.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, so people say the best days to hunt buffleheads in these coastal like marshes are when it's a very high traffic boat day. When the boats aren't really out and it's a crappy day, it doesn't keep the buffleheads moving. And that's another thing. So a lot of the WMAs you can only hunt in the daytime, or the morning time. If you're hunting some of these other areas that aren't WMA, you can hunt all day. And buffleheads, if you just they keep getting stirred up from other boats and stuff, it's perfectly legal to shoot them all day when they come by. So
they're dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, they get bumped up by a boat, and I don't know how many times we were just standing there next to our boat,
Mm-hmm.
and they just come flying by within 20 yards,
Yeah.
or whatever. So yeah, call out to the fishermen as far as that goes, because they definitely, and I think we've even experienced that during the early teal,
Mm-hmm.
with the like shrimping boats and
Mm-hmm.
things like that that come through.
For sure.
So no, great point about that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and we didn't talk about this prior, but it just hit my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and we were reflecting on the difference between the Atlantic Flyway
Mm-hmm.
and the Mississippi or Central Flyway.
Yeah.
And one thing that is different with our flyway, I think even the Pacific Flyway, is when the ducks migrate, they go to where they're going and they're done.
Pretty much.
I mean, I don't care who you are, you can say different, but
Mm-hmm.
but our years of experience has been they fly down to the south, and when they get down to where they want to be, they don't go back up north if it gets too cold. It just doesn't get cold enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a stopping point. Now, we do have a lot of ducks that will continue on. We've had fishermen friends of ours that have seen teal 50 yards off or 50 miles offshore.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing happens down to Argentina and places like that. But for the most part, if you've got pintails, say they're breeding in up above Maine somewhere or something like that, or in the Great Lakes region, and they come down the Atlantic Flyway, if where they want to be is South Central Florida, they're not going anywhere else.
No.
That's where they go, and that's where they winter at.
Yeah.
That's it. And what we've experienced in the other flyways is this constant fluctuation,
Mm-hmm.
constant. And you guys know what we're talking about. And that's why the weather is so important to that flyway, because it pushes them up, pushes them down, whatever. That does not happen.
No, and this year, in Miami actually was the coldest temperature I think since 2007 or 2008. And during that week, we hunted South Central Florida on a WMA, and it was the most stale duck hunt ever. Like these bird, like we were just pass shooting birds because that's the only thing you could do. Because
Hmm.
they, like you said, they had migrated down there and they've just been shot at all year. And there was not a new push of birds at
Mm-mm.
all, and there was no dumb birds. And like I said, that was one of the coldest winters Florida has had, or pushes of cold front that Florida's had since
Actually,
2007 or 8.
the whole eastern coast.
Yeah.
You would have told, and now we did see some better numbers of other waterfowl.
Hmm.
When you started getting into the coastal areas of Georgia, South Carolina, even Florida,
Hmm.
there was definitely, I think most, we call them sea ducks. I know some guys don't like to call them that, but divers,
Hmm.
your redheads, your bluebills, the greater scaup, the lesser scaup, um, um, some of the
Scotters and
scotters,
bullheads.
yeah, the mergansers, a lot of those, there was bigger numbers this year. And it was a lot of, mainly because of that cold front.
Oh yeah, at least on the eastern side. I from what we're familiar with, I don't know as far as western Florida, but yeah,
Yeah, it was just, but it was more on the diver side of ducks,
yeah,
as far as that goes. But point being is, that's different. You can't imagine that as a hunter from the Midwest,
no,
and so, point being, best advice I would give you is if you're going to invest some money to come down and hunt Florida, get here early.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, get here early. I would say the best month would be the first hunt after the first split.
yes,
Um,
totally agree.
yeah, after the first split, our split's very similar to a lot of places.
Hmm.
We're going to be closed for a couple weeks, open back up. That's going to be your best opportunity to invest in some money. That's going to be like the first couple weeks of
December.
December.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had some bangers those couple. Yeah, it's been some fun times.
It is. It is. It is. Um, so some of the things that you're going to want to have in your tackle box, so to speak, or your backpack or your boat,
Mhm.
some essentials from a safety standpoint. Again, make sure that you check the regulations. Boats that are over 17 foot, you have a whole different gamma of things that you have to comply with because of international waters,
Mhm.
or not international waters, but federal waters.
Yeah.
There's certain rules that the Coast Guard has that you have to comply with. Like if you've got a 17-foot boat like mine, you have to have a fire extinguisher, things like that. You want to research and make sure you understand what the safety rules are. but you're going to want inside your boat for sure. You bring a trolling motor.
Mm-hmm.
You want to back up for that. You're going to want to make sure that you have thermocells.
Yeah.
Thermocells. And if there wasn't another brand, I would just say a generic brand, but they work. I mean,
Yeah.
they're great. Or just some bug spray.
Yeah.
Bring that. I don't care what time of the year it is. It'll definitely get better, once it gets down below the 50s. But you want to have that in your gear with you. Concealment is very important, so you want to make sure you have a good camouflage of whatever. There's some great options out there that you can look at. What else, Tristan?
I'm trying to think. I mean, this is such a loaded topic that we could go on about a lot of different things, but
Rain gear.
rain gear, yeah, I mean, but yeah, for sure, I mean, definitely gonna run into that.
Yeah. Waterproof gun case.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, waterproof gun case, because again, we're in these marsh areas, and if you got to walk in, you're not taking your boat because it's too shallow or too thick or whatever, and you got to walk into this little pool. You're setting your gun case or whatever, and basically an inch above the water, it might get a little wet. So that's definitely a good important tip. So
I don't know if you're going to agree with what I'm going to do right here during this podcast, but let me tell you what else you got to worry about. I'll be right back. Nope. Keep it recording. Hold on.
Well, this ought to be interesting.
This is a curveball. So, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is what we call marsh damage. So,
Good old saltwater.
So, one of the important things that you'll want to make sure you do is that you protect your shells.
Mm-hmm.
Different guys will put WD-40.
Yeah.
We've seen that. What's our gun cleaner we use a lot of time?
Hops, maybe?
Yeah. Some of the hops sprays that they have.
Yeah.
Protectants. Wipe your shotgun shells down.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure that you keep them dry, because literally within a couple hours.
Oh yeah, and I was actually, that brings up another good point. I was going to touch about this on the boats, which might be an obvious because salt, and people live in the Midwest, salt on their trucks and all that stuff in the roads. But you gotta, we gotta wash our boat after every duck hunt, because you can't have that salt water sitting on there. So same thing with your gun, your shells. If any of that gets wet, I mean, it's just way more of a problem than it is with a little rain in the Midwest.
It is. And I'm gonna give us some plugs here for a minute. But which one was our episode from this past year when we hunted in the public land area in Florida, and it was really deep?
That was the Florida second split opener, which was a freaking awesome hunt. And again, what we're talking about, that's when you want to be there.
Yep.
But yeah, it was like 4 foot deep. We were hunting a reservoir.
Yeah. And so we were a little bit limited to what we could show you guys video footage wise, because Dalton, if we had him on the show right now, he was just like, what did you do to me? We put him in an environment that was so hard to videographer in.
Mm-hmm.
Or video in.
And he's a marsh guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's familiar with the challenges of it, but it just, to get the kind of shots that, like us shooting a bird, you're really risking getting picked out by birds if he was going to get out there. And it's one of those things where you're like, well, the second best thing is like him just filming us and getting something versus not getting anything. Cause
Yep, for sure. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So let's just jump back a little bit. So if you're going to go hunt here,
mm-hmm.
It's very affordable to
mm-hmm.
hunt Florida. You need your federal duck stamp. There's a couple other licenses and stamps and things that you have to get. But if you,
mm-hmm.
I think it's called the Go Outdoors Florida app. You just download that, and they make it super easy to get what you want, and you can even get like a couple days hunt
mm-hmm.
or something like that. But it's super cheap. Personally, I feel like Arkansas is on the expensive side, and I understand why they do what they do out there.
Yeah.
And limit times and stuff. But you can hunt Florida
mm-hmm.
all year long,
mm-hmm.
all season long. I mean,
yeah.
all season long, not all year long, but
Yeah.
all season long. So unlike in Arkansas, where you have like basically 3 main times that non-residents can come in, you can hunt there anytime you want.
Yep.
So that's another important point to bring up. But the point is that they make it super easy.
Mhm.
Download the app. You can do that. You can find out about these different lottery areas. I'm just not going to sit here and tell you guys what to do.
Yeah.
You know, we're not that far into given the reality of hunting.
Yeah.
You have to do some work yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just recommend, in closing, honestly, do your research on the rules.
Mm-hmm.
See what areas are in the area of Florida that you want to go hunt. I honestly believe that you could go anywhere in the state of Florida and within, I'd say, 100 miles and have a successful duck hunt if you do your research.
Yeah.
And just like anywhere else, you know, you do your social media scouting, you're using your app, whatever you're using, then you got to take the time to go scout.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. Even on the lottery areas, there's bad spots.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to know where the good spots are. So, unfortunately, you do have to spend that extra time and to finding out where you need to go.
For sure.
You know, just make sure you go out and do that, and you're going to have a way more successful hunt if you can do that. And worst case scenario, hit us up, and we'll try to help you out as well.
Absolutely. So thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions, again, this is a extremely loaded topic, and we got a lot of our, follower and subscriber bases from this area. So if you guys have anything that, you feel like we could share better with the Midwest or any other flyway hunters, definitely leave a comment and let us know, because we could do a part 2 to this. There's so much to cover. And we're not the best hunters out there, but this is what we were, when we first started duck hunting, this is what we were duck hunting in. And so we just thought we would talk about it. Again, we're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. And we'd really appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe. And that's this week's podcast.
Yeah. One thing I will mention that we have upcoming that's really cool. We're going to have a representative from Ducks Unlimited that has inside knowledge of what's going on with WMAs in Florida.
Yes.
He's going to talk about land that has been neglected. He's going to talk about, and you know what they are, guys and gals. You know what they are. If you want public land, you know. He's going to have updates about those areas. He's going to have updates about land that DU has partnered with people to acquire that gives our waterfowl areas to rest, that helps our hunting odds. He's talking about rules, laws, regulations, just different things that are changing. He's got something really exciting to announce about from a biological standpoint, what Ducks Unlimited has done to invest in the state of Florida. He'll be talking about that. We'll probably be bringing that to you sometime in July.
Yeah. Yep. So that's this week's podcast, guys. And thank you again for tuning in. And
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Later.